For years, Doctor Who fans have been wanting the show to pull off a surprise regeneration where we don't know an actor is going to be leaving the role until we literally watch it unfold on screen, or we don't know who they're going to be regenerating into, the identity of the next Doctor, and, well, at last, they've actually gone and done it. Yes, there were rumours, yes, there were murmurings, but no one knew for sure that the 15th Doctor would be leaving in the Reality War and that story would be a regeneration episode until it actually went out, until we saw that with our own eyes. And look, there's loads to talk about there. I will be discussing it in other videos this week. But of course, first things first, I've got to address that final scene, final shot, final few seconds of the story, which seemingly revealed our new Doctor, our 16th Doctor, to be none other than Billie Piper. Now, with any new Doctor, there is always a lot to talk about in terms of, what the actor has done previously, speculating about what the new actor will bring to the role as well. But this one feels different. It feels different this time, to quote the 5th Doctor. So, in terms of where we begin with this, because there's a lot to talk about, I think really it has to be the fact that it was actually rumoured in advance, much like the departure of Ncuti, but only within the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. It was around the time of the BAFTAs, the TV BAFTAs, whenever that was, like about a month ago, I think. And I believe the person that had been leaking all the other stuff about the series, like Joe Martin coming back and all the stuff like that, Mrs. Flood being the Rani, had basically said that the new Doctor, Nctui Gatwa's replacement, the 16th Doctor, was at the BAFTAs tonight, and it was a woman, and it was someone female and familiar to Doctor Who fans already. And I believe he also said that it was something that was going to bring the first 20 years of New Who full circle. And so, when you kind of put all that together, there's not many people that could be. Billie Piper was indeed there at the BAFTAs, and it was a weird thing as well, because there was talk about the news actually leaking and reaching the tabloids. I'm not sure whether the tabloids actually got hold of the story or not, whether they were about to run with it but pulled it at the last minute for whatever reason, whether the BBC were able to twist their arm or something. But it was interesting nevertheless, because the morning after that BAFTA ceremony, the BAFTA events, Billie Piper was actually on the cover of most UK newspapers, not because of Doctor Who, but just because of the outfit that she'd been wearing that night. And yeah, they were kind of just talking about that really, the fashion of it. So yeah, I don't know, maybe in hindsight that was going to be the leak, the story was going to be there in the tabloids, and at the last minute, for whatever reason, they changed the headline, they changed the story to kind of omit the whole Doctor Who thing. But yes, I'd heard the rumours beforehand. I'm sure lots of people watching will have heard them as well. I'm sure as well, to be honest, lots of people won't have heard the rumours, and that's fantastic, because this will have been a genuine surprise for you, for better or for worse, But yeah, I'd avoided talking about it on the channel at all costs. I was like, I'm not going to go there, just in case this is true. And in my own head as well, I was kind of thinking, okay, this guy that's leaked this stuff before has got a great track record, but even so, this seems ridiculous and crazy, and my God, what are they actually thinking here? And so I was kind of thinking, okay, I'm not going to believe this until I see it with my own eyes, much like with the Ncuti Regeneration, although I kind of put more stock in that because of reshoots and other things that have been going around and rumours and stuff. But yeah, it's true. She's the new Doctor, apparently, or well, so we think. I mean, that's probably the first thing to get into, the fact that we see her, and she says, oh, hello, or whatever, and smiles down the camera in that kind of slightly awkward looking shot where her face has clearly just been rotoscoped onto Nctui Gatwa's body for some reason. But yes, then we get the credit, in the credits. Well, Nctui Gatwa as the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, yay, and then Billie Piper, introducing Billie Piper, and then nothing afterwards. So what's that about? Because, usually when we get a new Doctor, it says introducing whoever as the Doctor. It could just be an error, I suppose that's possible, but I'm more inclined to believe that there is something in that, because with everything in this current era and the current iteration of the show, they do stuff like that to, well, in Russell's words, to generate content, to kind of get people talking. And yeah, it's they will have known, I think, that fans will look at that and think, hang on a minute, that doesn't kind of follow the precedent that we've seen so far with new Doctors. What's going on? It's going to get people talking, etc. So, is she the Doctor or not? It's a really interesting thing, because last night I was checking, I think Wikipedia had been updated to say, oh, Billie Piper, the 16th Doctor, and then I was checking it the following morning, and it was oh, that's gone now. They've kind of amended it to say, well, Billie Piper came back at the end of the Reality War, with many people assuming that she's the new Doctor, but it wasn't confirmed, and therefore we can only say that she's playing this undisclosed character, which I think is the opposite extreme, to be honest. I'm not sure they would do this this and then literally kind of backtrack and say, no, she's not the Doctor, it's not real. Because we've already had that with other recent Doctors, like with David Tennant coming back as the 14th Doctor, and with like Joe Martin as well, and is she like a parallel Doctor or like a hologram or an alternative reality Doctor? But no, she's the Doctor. So they're not going to do that. They're clearly not going to do that. Now they've said that she is a Doctor, or at least kind of presented her as the Doctor. Now they've had the Regeneration, they've committed that down to paper. They can't go back from that. However, like I say, it wouldn't surprise me if there was something else going on here. I mean, if you think about, for instance, with Nctui Gatwa, when he was announced as the Doctor, the week before we'd had the announcement that David Tennant and Catherine Tate were coming back for the 60th specials, but Nctui Gatwa was, well, he wasn't referred to as a numbered Doctor, 14th or 15th or whatever. He was just kind of very carefully announced as the new Doctor. And of course, lots of people assumed that Jodie Whittaker was going to regenerate into him, and he was the 14th Doctor. He was the next one along. But of course, we then got David Tennant in between. He was the 14th Doctor. So they've messed around with stuff like that in the past. It's certainly not beyond them to do something like that. And it does feel a lot like the whole David Tennant thing from a couple of years ago. We've had an old Doctor come back as the Doctor. Now we've got an old companion coming back as the Doctor. The Doctor is currently raiding this back catalogue of faces, both their own faces and now those of their companions as well. And yeah, it kind of sums up my whole feelings towards this, I think. That whole idea of raiding the back catalogue, going back, calling back to the past constantly. Yes, okay, it's a nice full circle thing, this, in principle, because it brings us full circle. It brings us all the way back to Rose, the person that started off this current iteration of Doctor Who. And it's very fitting for the production company that currently produces Doctor Who as well, Bad Wolf, because obviously they were named after, Bad Wolf. Rose Tyler was the Bad Wolf, Billie Piper was the Bad Wolf. So I can kind of see, like, from that point of view, for the production team, for Billie, it must feel like a kind of homecoming of sorts. But at the same time, kind of beyond that, I'm not sure how to feel about this. The fact that we're getting someone back again, like 2 of the past 3 Doctors have been familiar faces from a particular era as well of New Who. It's not like we're getting like Bradley Walsh back or Pearl Mackie or someone. It's very kind of targeted at the first Russell era and people that Russell has worked with before as well. So you can kind of see the link there and with Bad Wolf, the production team. They're all mates. It kind of feels a little bit like that, like, oh, we'll just go back to somebody that we know rather than bring someone new in. I was really looking forward to, well, in theory, potentially seeing a brand new Doctor, a brand new actor to the role. That could have happened here. We could have had Ncuti regenerate into someone new, and instead we've had him regenerate into Rose Tyler. And it's difficult to kind of judge as well because we don't actually know what shape, the future of Doctor Who is going to take at this point. Like when the next 2 episodes are, whether they've even officially been commissioned yet or not. Will it be like later this year or next year or the year after that? Will it be a season, a Christmas special, a series of specials like we had for the 60th with David Tennant? I think that, personally speaking, would be more palatable because this does feel like a kind of stunt casting thing. Not that Billie isn't a great actor, but yeah, the fact that she's played that role previously, it just muddies the waters, it complicates things. I think if she was coming to it fresh, if she'd never been in Doctor Who before, if she'd never played Rose Tyler, then yeah, she'd be a great choice, an inspired choice. But the fact that she has played Rose, and the fact that kind of seems to be the crux of this as well. It's almost like saying, oh look, you remember her from 20 years ago, don't you? That just doesn't feel right. And likewise, it remains to be seen what shape the storylines will take for this Doctor, but there have been statements released by both Billie and Russell kind of alluding to the mystery of why the Doctor's got her face back, like, oh, why and who and how and when, and it's just like, we've done this before, we've done this with David Tennant, we've had it with Peter Capaldi, we've had it with Colin Baker, where these actors have either been in the show as a different character, or literally as the Doctor in David Tennant's case, and we had a bit of a mystery there, and it was sort of paid off, but it wasn't a massive thing. So I'm not sure how invested fans will be able to get in that kind of mystery again. We've had it like 3 times already. It just, again, feels like a rehash, treading old ground. I think overall, this just feels like a very bizarre direction to take the show in, a very bizarre choice. And yeah, we're in this kind of state of limbo here where we don't really know what's going on. We haven't even got like the official portrait of Billie as the Doctor yet, like we get every time with a new Doctor. That photograph that's always there on the front pages of the papers or whatever. So it kind of feels like she is the Doctor, but also she isn't. It's worth saying as well that we have this special episode of the behind-the-scenes show Doctor Who Unleashed coming up next week, 20 years of new Doctor Who, where they're going to be celebrating that anniversary and interviewing lots of doctors and companions, including Billie Piper. So perhaps there we're going to get, some clearer idea of what's going on. Perhaps Russell is going to use that as like a platform to kind of say, well, here's what's next, here's what we're planning, for the future. Stay tuned, faithful viewer. Those are my initial thoughts on Billie Piper apparently being the new Doctor Who. But what did you think of this news, this revelation? Were you shocked? Were you stunned, surprised, angry, disappointed? Whatever the case, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like if you have enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new as well, and stick around because we're going to be doing a roundtable reaction to the news as well with other Doctor Who fans, other viewpoints, so look forward to that. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.